Good morning. My name is Linda Mowers, your worship leader this morning. Please hear our opening words by UU Minister Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom. We come together this morning because within us there is something that knows we need more than we can find in our aloneness. We know instinctively in the depths of ourselves that we need others for this journey of life, even though we also guard our independence and individuality quite jealously. So let us celebrate all that makes us unique, yet also all that makes us one. And let us dream dreams of all that we can do together. And we are so pleased this morning to have our guest musician, Garret Kaplan, back at the piano this morning, a student of music technology at the University of North Florida. He has a conducting certificate and is an accomplished and award-winning pianist. You can find out more about him in the order of service. Garrett's opening selection is a Lennon McCartney piece called Blackbird, and later in the service he'll return to perform a Bill Evans composition entitled Peace, Peace, and that is P-E-A-C-E, P-I-E-C-E. We're so glad to have you with us again today, Garret. Welcome. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. So I'd like to invite Beth Curtis, our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, to the pulpit for our time for all ages.
Thank you, Linda, and good morning. Now, I recently attended a BBUUC art club, which, shameless plug here, occurs every third Monday of the month. I'm nervous about this. I mean, in my lifetime, I've done some half-decent art, but it's been a while. And where do I start? Now, I know my first attempt is just going to be horrible. And I know that shouldn't matter. Not to me, and certainly not to anybody in the art club, because they are amazing people. So I'm going to take the book that I'm reading today to heart, because this book says all art is wonderful. It's called I Am an Artist by Marta Altes. Now, this book relies on some illustrations to tell the story, so in some cases, I'm going to describe what we see. I am an artist. Now, here, we see a young boy with somewhat of a Picasso-esque mustache who has created a fantastical sculpture utilizing a cat, a banana, and a lamp, amongst other things. So is my mom, but in a very different way. Oh, here his mom has applied some beautiful makeup and is looking into a compact mirror. That's her impression of art. Everywhere I look, I see art, and I don't think my mom always sees it. Oh dear, here the boy has drawn on the wall in a mirror, and the mom is pointing up, which probably means that that he's being sent to his room. Where I see the loneliness of a carrot, my mom sees unfinished dinner. Where I see a wonder to the world, a window to the world, my mom sees a hole in the wall. I don't think she understands me, but I can't stop creating. Some of my finest pieces of art this week are blue number 10. Now here he's dipping his teddy bear into blue paint. Blue number 11. Here he is painting a dining room chair blue. And blue number 12. Here he has splashed blue paint all over himself. This one I call multiple self-portrait. Here, the boy is looking into a broken mirror in the wall with many reflections of himself. And I think I'll call this one Spring in Winter. Oh, I am so talented, I just can't help it. Everything inspires me. On this page, the boy has assembled dozens of plants on a large double bookshelf. I love nature. Oh my, the young man is now reclining in the buff outdoors. Colors. This page has multicolored spots on the background, also on the boy and the cat. Movement. Here we see a fan blowing a mobile made of clothes hangers, a spatula, and various items of clothing, jewelry, all hanging off of a chandelier. Textures. The boy is now in a bathtub with various items of clothing and wet toilet paper rolls. And shapes. On this page, the boy is sitting on top of a construction of furniture, toys, and various household items, including a toppled-over birdcage from which a yellow bird has just escaped. But there's just one problem: my mom. I think maybe something is wrong. Perhaps I haven't given her enough attention. There must be something I can do to help her feel better. The mom is frantically now chasing the yellow bird. His mom is meditating, standing on one foot with the bird on her head. I know. I'm going to make an amazing piece of art, especially for her. But it will need some careful planning. I can't wait for her to wake up. I hope she likes it. On this page, Mom is happily napping on an armchair. On this page, we see that he has joyfully, exuberantly drawn, sculpted, painted on nearly every surface of the house, and many of those drawings are belovedly of his beloved mother. I call it Ode to Mum. I am an artist. I can't stop creating. Everything inspires me. The end.
Good morning. Welcome to Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, or BBUUC. We're a progressive spiritual congregation whose mission is to create and nourish a loving community that seeks justice and respect for all. Unitarian Universalism is a living faith tradition that evolves and moves to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teachings from ancient and modern sources, and nature itself. We believe it's our obligation to express our faith through acts of compassion and justice. We understand that there is more than one book or one path or one way to religious truth. We will challenge you to discover for yourself how you find and make meaning, and we do this together in a supportive church community. We actively invite intellectual and spiritual growth and nurture truth-seeking, spirituality, and moral values that will continue to shape and support us from childhood through all stages of our lives. Our children are encouraged to ask questions, to think, and express themselves. We look at religious beliefs as not being set in stone, but as a beautiful unfolding mosaic of meaning. We operate as an autonomous congregation we operate as autonomous congregations in our association. We're connected as members of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We work democratically to govern our congregations and our association. We have no creed, no doctrine telling you what you must believe, but instead we articulate the shared values that we covenant to affirm and promote. And these values are also living and evolving. And they're found on the back of your order of service. We welcome you. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture your heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of your bigger questions. We welcome you. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We hope you will find ways to provide outreach to others in our congregation, in our local community, and in our world community. I'd like to extend a special greeting to those of you who are guests or newcomers this morning. We hope that you will stop by our welcome table for name tags so that we can greet you by name, and for information about our congregation and Unitarian Universalism. You can also find out about our regularly scheduled Learn About UU and Learn About BBUUC classes. Feel free to ask any of our members any questions you may have, and we'll invite you to stay after this service for fellowship, including coffee and other beverages, refreshments, and conversations. We would love an opportunity to meet you and welcome you in person after the service. Please see your order of service, our monthly newsletter, our weekly emails, and the bulletin boards for information on our community's many activities and events. Thanks also to all of our volunteers who make our Sunday worship, religious education classes, and fellowship hour happen. We're about to enter sacred time, made so by your presence and intention. Please turn off or silence your phones and devices, and as you do so, I invite each of us to be here in this moment. Our opening hymn this morning is number 326 in the gray hymnal, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. As our song leaders come forward to the chancel, I'll share with you that the music is adapted from an English melody, and the lyrics were written by UU Minister Reverend Dana McLean Greeley. He was the president of the American Unitarian Association in the late 50s and early 60s, and then he became the first president of the newly formed Unitarian Universalist Association from 61 to 69. And in 1970, he became president of the International Association for Religious Freedom. We'll ask Gary to play it through once, and then we'll join in to sing all 3 verses. So please rise in body or spirit. The words are also shown on the screen. Thank you so much. Since Unitarian Universalists don't have a creed or dogma, what holds us together as community is covenant. These are the promises that we make to one another about who we will be as a faith community and how we will be in relationship with one another as we practice our values. Creating beloved community requires intention and practice. Our covenant articulates our intention. We recite the covenant that we created as a congregation to help us live into the practice. Our covenant is printed in your order of service, and I invite you to speak the words together in unison. Please join me. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Now I'd like to invite Sarah Johnson to come forward and light our chalice this morning as I share with you the words of UU Minister Reverend Scott Taylor. In the soft light of this flame, may we see life anew. May the supposedly real seem less solid. May the inevitable reveal its carefully concealed cracks. It's all made of pieces and parts, friends, each of them longing to be rearranged. Or maybe it's a story, and the pen is in our hand. Thank you, Sarah. Please rise again in body or spirit and join me in our call to worship. The words are printed in your order of service. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. We come to this place because we love what exists here. This church is a living entity, and like all living things, it must have nurture and sustenance. Its breath and its heartbeat, its life itself, can only be derived from its living components, us. As the plates are passed this morning for our offering, I remind you all to take the plate and pass it to your neighbor, whether you choose to contribute at this time or not, or whether you choose to give by using our QR code or the website link. For as we pass the plate, we participate in this important ritual. Give what you will for the church that meant so much to those who came before us, for our congregation today, and for the church that will mean so much to people that we'll never know. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. I now invite our offertory ushers, David Rulison and Chuck Smithers, to come forward for our offertory plates to accept your gifts. And after the offering, I invite you all to rise in body or spirit and join me in the offertory hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life, in your gray hymnals. Our reading this morning is from The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. I'm going to take a little drink of water because my voice is a little sketchy today. You may have noticed that the books you really love are bound together by a secret thread. You know very well what is the common quality that makes you love them, though you cannot put it into words. But most of your friends do not see it at all, and often wonder why, liking this, you should also like that. Again, you have stood before some landscape which seems to embody what you have been looking for all your life, and then turn to the friend at your side who appears to be seeing what you saw, But at the first words, a gulf yawns between you, and you realize that this landscape means something totally different to him, that he is pursuing an alien vision and cares nothing for the ineffable suggestion by which you are transported. Even in your hobbies, has there not always been some secret attraction which the others are curiously ignorant of, something not to be identified with, but always on the verge of breaking through? The smell of cut wood in the workshop, or the clap of water against the boat's side. Are not all lifelong friendships born at the moment when at last you meet another human being who has some inkling, but faint and uncertain even at the best, of that something which you were born desiring, and which beneath the flux of other desires, and in all the momentary silences between the louder passions, night and day, year by year, from childhood to old age, you are looking for, watching for, listening for. You have never had it. All the things that have ever deeply possessed your soul have been but hints of it, tantalizing glimpses, promises never quite fulfilled, echoes that died away just as they caught your ear. But if it should really become manifest, and if there ever came an echo that did not die away but swelled into the sound itself, you would know it. Beyond all possibility of doubt, you would say, "Here at last is the thing I was made for." We cannot tell each other about it. It is the secret signature of each soul, the incommunicable and unappeasable want, the thing we desired before we met our wives or made our friends or chose our work, and which we still desire on our deathbeds when the mind no longer knows wife or friend or work. While we are, this is. If we lose this, we lose all. And thus ends our reading. I'm so happy to introduce our guest speaker this morning, Eric Moore. Eric and his family of 9 comprise very familiar faces here at BBUC. He's led a reading and discussion group here, but this is his first time in our pulpit. Eric and his wife, Christine, both career educators, taught overseas in Indonesia and Korea before Eric earned his doctorate in education. And he currently serves as Director of Learning Technology at a pediatric learning hospital. We're pleased to welcome Eric to our pulpit this morning to present his sermon, Broad Brushstrokes and Filtered Light. Eric, the pulpit is yours.
Truth, naked and cold, went to every house in the village and was turned away. They were afraid of her nakedness. Parable, taking pity on her, took her in, clothed her in story, warmed her by the fire, and sent her out again. And then each house in the village welcomed her into their home and ate with her at their tables and let her warm herself by their fires. Jewish parable. Every week here at BBUC, we are witnesses. We come as people's share of themselves in various artistic expression. Here in the back corner over this last year, we have been treated to people who have shared of themselves in tapestry and photography and painting and ceramics. And even once, we were treated to the opportunity to see how intricate, how beautiful the inner workings of old video game systems could be if you knew how to look. In the movie Something the Lord Made, it tells the true story, biopic, of Vivian Thomas, a black man from the tumultuous mid-20th century, who was a carpenter and over time rose in the ranks to being a chief cardiologist at Johns Hopkins University, in which he had life-changing and transformative treatments that he developed. At one point in the movie, he's telling his wife about what it's like to operate. And he says, it's not that bad. I mean, you look inside and you see the pinks and the blues and the reds. It's beautiful, Clara. That's where life comes from. What is art? What makes something art? What is the moment when notes become melody? Where is that place where splashes of color on canvas become something worth hanging in a gallery? Where does it occur when words and phrases and syllables assemble themselves in such a way that we recognize poetry and literary prose? Unsurprisingly, it depends on who you ask. Leo Tolstoy said that art is the activity by which a person having experienced an emotion transmits intentionally this emotion to others. Edgar Degas seems to agree, saying that art is not what you see, but what you enable others to see. On the other hand, Oscar Wilde, that Irish playwright and winner of the Nobel Prize, has a very different view, saying that art is the most intense mode of individualism that the world has ever known. Pablo Picasso says, art is a lie that enables us to realize the truth. And Marcel Duchamp, a French postmodern artist, infamously said that art is art because I said it is. Is art in the subject that a photographer captures at just such an angle, in just such a light? Or is art in their willingness to find beauty where others would simply pass by? Is art in the way that they choose in a labor of love to capture it for us and share it so that we too may experience what they saw, if only vicariously? Or is something art only after it has been witnessed and accepted and appreciated by those with whom it is shared? William Carlos Williams, in what is probably his most famous and beloved poem, writes of all things of a red wheelbarrow. He says, "So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater, beside the white chickens." Why is this beautiful? Why does this continue to awe and surprise people? And Vincent van Gogh, a young Vincent van Gogh, once wrote to his brother Theo from a hotel in Paris in 1888 as he looked out at the night sky above the Rhone. And he says, the starry sky at last, actually painted at night under a gas lamp. The sky is a green blue, the water a royal blue, the areas of land are mauve. The town is blue and violet, the gaslight is yellow, and its reflections are red and gold, and go right down to green bronze against the green-blue field of the sky. The Great Bear has green and pink sparkle, whose discreet paleness contrasts with the harsh gold of the gaslight. Two small, colorful figures of lovers in the foreground. And as he describes this to his brother, he then takes out a little postcard-sized piece of paper and he sketches what is obviously a Van Gogh in short, broad pen strokes, what would later that year become his famous Starry Night over the Rhone. One has to wonder, is this how Van Gogh actually saw the world? His letter demonstrates a generosity of spirit of seeing something so heartrending, he needs to share it. He shares it with his brother Theo, and later that year with the world. This desire to share is innate to art. Of course, art is not always beautiful. Some of our most beloved ballets and poems and films and photography capture not beauty, but loss and darkness and brokenness. Carl Sandburg was an American poet who, among other things, lived through World War I. When he came home, he tried to capture some of what he experienced to share that with us as well. One of his poems is this one, Killers. He writes, I am singing to you, soft as a man with a dead child speaks, hard as a man in handcuffs, held where he cannot move. Under the sun are 16 million men chosen for shining teeth, sharp eyes, hard legs, and a running of young, warm blood in their wrists. And a red juice runs on the green grass, and a red juice soaks the dark soil, and the 16 million are killing and killing and killing. I never forget them, day or night. They beat on my head for memory of them. They pound on my heart, and I cry back to them, to their homes and women, dreams and games. I wake in the night and smell the trenches and hear the low stir of sleepers in lines. 16 million sleepers and pickets in the dark, some of them long sleepers for always, some of them tumbling to sleep tomorrow for always, fixed in the drag of the world's heartbreak, eating, drinking, and toiling on a long job of killing. 16 million men. And Elie Wiesel, in the same line, survivor of Auschwitz as a teenager, wrote, "For in my tradition as a Jew, I believe that whatever we receive, we must share. When we endure an experience, the experience cannot stay with me alone. It must be opened. It must become an offering. It must be deepened and given and shared. How can we therefore speak unless we believe that our words have meaning, that our words will help others, prevent my past from becoming another person's, another people's future? Yes, our stories are essential to memory. I believe that the witness, especially the survivors, have the most important role. They can say simply, in the words of the prophet, I was there. From our earliest memories, we are witnesses. We are survivors, we are observers, we are recipients of experiences, beautiful and confounding and tragic and surprising. Our eyes, our minds, our hearts that take snapshots at just such an angle, in just such a light, that is ever, always unique. The philosopher Ananias said that we see things as we are, not as they are. And in so many ways, formally and informally, we share. And I wonder if we, all of us, in this way, this definition, can see ourselves as artists. The people I know who recognize that they are artists, the poets, the painters, the actors, the writers, the sculptors, and musicians, they have a common pattern I've noticed over the years. In preparing to create, to really create, they undergo routines. And the way they set up their easel in just such a way, and prepare their paints just so. The furious scribbling and stream of consciousness on legal pads in search of just that right word or phrase or line on which to found a poem. The way the photographer gets up in the blue-black cold and makes their way out to the mountain peak overlooking the foggy valley with the frosted leaves and the lights and the mist and the nocturnal animals making their way back home so they can capture this moment and share it with those of us who would never get out of bed so early or make such a trek. These are not mere routines or habits. I have learned these are ritual. The act of creating isn't so much about producing something new as it is revealing what has been known and forgotten. The artist doesn't so much compose as they do revive what is dormant, remind us of a truth that we once knew and can know again. Art speaks to us when it does, because we hear in it an echo of a voice we recognize, because it reminds us of that which we are seeking, that if it became manifest, as Lewis says, we would know it. What then is art? Is it sharing or is it individualism? Yes. Is it beauty or is it horror? Absolutely. Is it harsh reality or truthful distortion? Of course. Is it an artist's intent or what others see in it. Yes and yes. Truth is nothing if not paradoxical. A paradox is a statement that seems to contradict itself or go against common sense, but may actually be true. I think that UU Church is a paradox. There are not many places in the world where an atheist and a Christian and a Hindu could gather together without any awkwardness and sing about my blue boat home, accompanied by an esteemed professor of music who moonlights as a small church pianist. This is a special place. On the wall behind me, behind the screen, as you know, there are these 8 symbols representing 8 major world religions. And I've been here long enough to know that this is shorthand. Scholars today say that there are as many as 10,000 active religions through this world, and tens of thousands more that have expired or evolved. And I believe that we would welcome any of those 10,000s into this place to sing with us, to join us after the service for coffee and cookies. In this, I think the UU Church is wise, for there is wisdom and truth and art in all of the traditions. As you may know, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity share a common foundation. In what Christians call the Old Testament and parts of the Quran for Islam and the Talmud for Jews, there is overlapping stories. Moses, for example, features prominently in all 3 of these texts. All 3 of them describe a time in which young boys were being murdered throughout the empire, and Moses' mother pitching a basket and putting him into the Nile with a hope and a prayer that somehow he might survive. And all 3 have a woman finding him and picking him up. But here the stories diverge. In Judaism and Christianity, this woman is one of Pharaoh's daughters. You might be familiar with the story, who then raises Moses as her own. In Islam, it's not one of Pharaoh's daughters, but actually one of his wives, a woman named Asiyah. But in all 3 cases, the woman raises him. Asiyah, now, over the course of raising Moses, Moses learns of Allah and becomes a prophet of Allah and shares this with his mother, who adopts his faith. And as Pharaoh comes to learn of Asiyah's belief in this new God, he tells her this cannot be, and he demands that she starts worshiping again the idols that he has set out. And she refuses. And he tortures her and eventually murders her. And she never gives in. And her story reverberates through history in Joan of Arc and Saint Cecilia and Rosa Parks and women who speak truth to power regardless of the consequences to themselves. It isn't so much that it happened, but that it happens. And is this not art? And there's a Buddhist parable of a senior monk and a junior monk who are walking, and they happen upon a swiftly current river, and there's a young woman, a beautiful young woman, standing at the side of the stream saying, I can't get across, will you help me? And the senior monk lifts her up onto his shoulders and carries her across and sets her down on the other bank, and they go on. And over time, the senior monk realizes that the junior monk looks very upset. And he turns to the junior and he says, what's the matter? What are you so upset about? And he says, we are monks. We have sworn never to touch a woman. Why did you carry that woman on your shoulder? You have broken your precepts. And the senior monk says, my child, I set that woman down a long time ago at the side of the bank. Why are you still carrying her? And is this not art? And there's a Christian story about Jesus who is confronting the religious leaders, or being confronted by the religious leaders of his day, who are trying to trap him. And they ask him a question they think is unanswerable, saying, which of the laws is the greatest law of all? And he answers them, "The greatest law is this: love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your strength and all of your mind. And the second is like this: love your neighbor as yourself. On this the whole law rests." And they push him further, and they say, "Okay, all right, that's a good answer. But who's my neighbor?" And instead of just telling them the straight answer, Jesus, understanding the power of parable, the power of story, goes into this tale. And he tells about a Jewish man who, on a journey, is befallen by robbers and beaten and left bloodied by the side of the road, and how he is happened upon by a Jewish priest who, upon seeing him, doesn't want to become unclean and passes to the other side of the road and bypasses. And then a rabbi happens upon him and lifts up his tunic and passes by. And then he's happened upon by a Samaritan. Now, Samaritans in these days were the sworn enemy of Jews. And the Samaritan gathers the man up onto his donkey and brings him to an inn and sees to it that he's cared for, giving his own silver to the innkeeper and saying, "If his expenses are more than what I've given you, I will settle it next time I come through." And Jesus turns to these people and he says, "Now, which of these was a neighbor?" And he lets them answer for themselves. And is this not art? I imagine Van Gogh writing to Theo that Parisian winter, carefully describing the colors of the scene before him, making short, broad brushstrokes with his pen to sketch out the starry scene he saw. I imagine the scribes, the storytellers, the historians of old, hearing stories and finding in them a truth revealed. I imagine them writing with love to their brother, to their mother, to generations unknown ahead. The starry sky at last actually painted at night under a gas lamp. And she held her truth whatever the cost. I set her down at the bank of the river. Why are you still carrying her? Which of these was a neighbor? And is this not art? Artists share. They invite others to see what they see and experience what they have experienced. To engage with art is to see the world through the eyes of another, to see through their lens, to feel their emotions, to remember the truth alongside them. And to live in community, especially a faith community, is to live in a museum. We have the opportunity, the invitation to learn from those around us, in the music, in the service, in the dedication, in the hospital visits, in the lighting of candles, in the rising and ritual, in unison in body or spirit, in the sharing of message and story or song or sermon, in the making of coffee and the serving of vegan cookies, in the photography and the needlework, in the garden, weeded, overgrown, and weeded again, in the wall of names of those we have lost but won't forget, in the chalice, lit by the collective flame of the multitudes of faiths and wonders. Is this not art?
So very much. Our closing hymn this morning is number 309. In your great hymnals, Earth is Our Homeland. I invite our song leaders to come forward for our closing hymn. Johann Brahms wrote the music. The words were co-written by UU minister and chair of the Hymn Book Commission who created these hymnals in our hands, Reverend Mark Bellatini, and Helen Pickett was a lifelong church musician who co-wrote the lyrics with Reverend Bellatini, and also was on the Hymn Book Commission. Gary's going to play the song through once, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit and sing all 4 verses. The words are also on the screen. Please remain standing for our benediction and chalice extinguishing. Thank you so much. Will Sarah please come forward to extinguish the chalice as we close our service with the words of UU Minister Reverend Krista Taves. It is our work shared with each other in covenant that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions that we've chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us together in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.